Happiness, in the reduced sense in which we recognize it as possible, is a problem of the economics of the individual's libido. There is no golden rule which applies to everyone. Every man must find out for himself in what particular fashion he can be saved. End quote. Furthermore, like the subjective irrational instincts constituting man's libido, quote, happiness, however, is something essentially subjective. End quote. It is of particular interest that Freud seems to equate happiness with being saved. Does that mean the goal of the ascetic lifestyle espoused by the Protestant reformers was to achieve happiness? One could argue that the Protestant could only find eternal happiness in the afterlife, and thus sought to achieve that future happiness by delaying it in the present. Modern man, however, must be saved in the present, and thus seeks happiness in making sense of irrational ambiguities. Thus, the social Darwinists, in striving to explain the harsh conditions of capitalism during the Industrial Revolution, justify its existence as an evolving social organism that will ultimately guarantee the happiness of mankind. Spencer alludes to the division of labor in society to elucidate this, quote, when he find that while social health, in a measure, depends on the fulfillment of some function in which he takes part, his happiness depends on the normal action of every organ in the social body. When he duly understands this, he must see that his own welfare and all men's welfare are inseparably. No one can be perfectly happy till all are happy. End quote. In another article, Spencer argues that capitalism will lead man to happiness. In comparing evolution to capitalistic society, Spencer states, quote, there is a gradual advance towards harmony between man's mental nature and the conditions of his existence. Evolution can end only in the establishment of the greatest perfection and the most complete happiness. End quote. But can evolution end? Can capitalism, constantly evolving, changing, accumulating, and rationalizing, end? The social Darwinists seem to think so, but they overlook the fact that evolution seems to be an infinite progression by its very nature. Indeed, if this end point of capitalism is happiness, will a capitalistic society ever reach it? Freud pessimistically states that the concept of eternal happiness is essentially delusional, but one must keep in mind that Freud himself is a product of this confounded empirical society we have described. Furthermore, adopting his theories as fact would mark an end of individual intellectual progression. By believing Freud, we submit to his ideology, and thus our intellect clings to a consistency, and subsequently has nothing to do. In a Freudian sense, we gain security through this submission, but we lose freedom, and thus we are left unsatisfied. A vicious cycle is seen here. Thus, in any rational pursuit, such as the analysis that I have just delivered, one stumbles upon ultimate dissatisfaction. Like capitalism, an analysis is a progression, or an evolution of rational ideas, and thus in an attempt to find security, we discover that we are ultimately insecure. In the unsettling words of Herbert Spencer, the end